One of the most feared SS divisions of the entire Second World War, Hitler's Viking Division, or also known as Viking, fought only in the Eastern Front theater of operations. Their fame and reputation as fierce fighters took them there to the heart of the battle, making it the 3rd Division with the most winners of the Knight's Cross with a total of 55 awards. This division of the Waffen SS fought from the beginning of the Eastern Front until the final moment of the war. The video that we will see will not only be with the history of the unit, but we will learn a little about its structure, commanders, and other topics. We will learn about this and more below. In the mid-1940s, with Western Europe under German control, a large number of foreigners sympathizing with the Third Reich sought to join the Waffen SS. Until then, the 4 existing SS divisions only allowed the entry of Germans. To solve this problem in September in 1940, the top leader of the SS Heinrich Himmler gave an order for the creation of a 5th division, composed of volunteers of Germanic and Nordic origin, Norwegians, Danes, and Dutch, who would later be joined by Swedes and Finns. With this, 2 regiments were formed, the Norrland and the Westland. However, a corps of German officers and troops with combat experience was needed. The Germania Regiment of the 2nd Waffen SS Division was then transferred. Commanding this new division would be General SS Felix Steiner, a former Wehrmacht officer. While the new recruits were being trained, the question of the name arose. Many wanted to keep the name Germania, but this would generate confusion between the regiment and the division. For this reason, and taking into account the origin of its recruits, at the end of December 1940 the division was called as Viking. Training of troops ended in April 1941. With the Wehrmacht accumulating a huge number of troops in western Poland in view of Operation Barbarossa, the Viking Division joined the 3 Panzer Corps of the Southern Army Group. The division saw action for the first time on June 29, fighting at Tarnopol against the Red Army and fighting well in combat. Then the advance on Ukraine followed, and in August, together with other Wehrmacht troops, they destroyed the human pocket and captured more than 100,000 Soviet prisoners. That month the Vikings managed to cross the Dnieper River and assault the strategic city of Rostov. The battle for that city was of unprecedented savagery that only predicted what would be hell on the Russian front. At the end of November, the Red Army began a counterattack on Rostov and forced the Viking to take up defensive positions on the other side of the Meuse River. With the arrival of winter, the German advance was frozen. With the new year of 1942, German plans targeted the Caucasus and its important oil wells. The division recaptured the city of Rostov in July 1942 and entered the Caucasus region, reaching the Terek River just a few kilometers from the city of Grozny, current capital of Chechnya. Attempts by the Viking together with the 13th Panzer Division to capture this city failed again and again due to the resistance of the Red Army. Let's look at this map as a reference to see what the Viking Division had advanced into Soviet territory from June 1941 until the end of September 1942 when they reached the Terek River. Faced with the impossibility of breaking the enemy lines and having lost more than 1,500 men in just 2 weeks, the division continued trying to make its way to the Caspian Sea, not from Grozny but from another sector of the front. However, the encirclement of the 6th Army at Stalingrad paralyzed all German offensive operations in the Caucasus. Defensive fighting during the long retreat through the Caucasus led the German High Command in late 1942 to change the division status to Panzer Grenadier. The long retreat would take them again in January 1943 to the south of Kharkov, a city recently abandoned by the 2 SS Panzer Corps. The Vikings and the 11th Panzer Division would fight tenaciously against the Popov Mobile Group made up of 4 corps and 2 tank brigades. They held back the spearhead of Soviet tanks while the 2 SS Panzer Corps attacked and destroyed this imposing formation of the Red Army. The recapture of Kharkov was going to last a short time because in August 1943 it would once again fall into the hands of the Soviets. At the beginning of 1944, converted into an SS Panzer Division, the Viking would be fighting in the Battle of the Korsun Siege. The division would continue fighting during the first months of 1944 in the Pripyat swamps. In June of that same year this unit would be sent back to Germany to be re-equipped with new material and recruits. The calm would not last long. The Eastern Front had begun to collapse, also in the Army Group Center sector following Operation Bagration that had brought the Red Army forces to the outskirts of Warsaw. In August, the Viking Division would be deployed to this city, where it would remain until it was sent to Budapest in January 1945 as part of Operation Conrad, the German attempt to break the siege of Budapest. The Totenkopf and Viking divisions would advance more than 50 kilometers in a week, but being very close to their objective, they were stopped by a counterattack by the Red Army that forced them to go on the defensive. A huge offensive by the Red Army pushed the Vikings from Hungary to Austria at the end of March 1945, where finally a part of them would surrender to the Soviets during the last days of the war, and others escaped to Czechoslovakia and surrendered to the Americans. The Viking Division fought from the opening of the Eastern Front until the last day of the war. They showed their bravery in the hell of the Russian front and won more than 54 Knight's Crosses, demonstrating why they received the title of elite unit. Thanks for watching the video. If you are interested in World War II content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I upload new videos every week.